Okay, sorry.
Sorry. I call the member for Melbourne.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. This government certainly deserves an award for irony, if not hypocrisy, when it comes to public transport and cost-benefit analyses. We heard this government, when they were in opposition, rail for 3 years against the NBN on the basis that there was no published cost-benefit analysis. And yet, within a nanosecond of getting elected, this Prime Minister said that he would pledge billions of dollars of Commonwealth money ripped from the aid budget to a project in Melbourne that won't just wreck the inner city of Melbourne, but does not even have its own independent published cost-benefit analysis. $18 billion worth of development, no published cost-benefit analysis. It wasn't even recommended by Infrastructure Australia in the top slot on its priority list because they knew that there were better ways to spend the money. But that didn't stop this government or this Prime Minister. Simply because they thought it was in their electoral interest, they were prepared to throw everything that they'd previously said about cost-benefit analyses and the independence of Infrastructure Australia out the window and commit several $billion of money to a project that just doesn't stack up. And in fact, as we've said, as we've heard, $1.5 billion of that has already been handed over. What we do know, because we've been able to get it through the Senate and through some brave people who used to be in Infrastructure Australia, is that for every dollar that goes into this project, the taxpayer is going to get 80 cents back. Taxpayer is going to get 80 cents back. And the only way that you can inflate it so that it's not a loss-making project is by saying for the East-West link, we'll make some speculative assumptions about transport and public transport times, which every respectable commentator has said they just don't stack up. And there's a very, very simple way of testing whether the Prime Minister's East-West link is worthwhile. Release an independent cost-benefit analysis. And so the government comes in here and says we're going to move amendments to require in the future some cost-benefit analyses, but they ignore the fact that they are about to spend billions of dollars of taxpayers' money on a project that will be an albatross around the neck of Victorian and federal taxpayers for years to come. Stage 1 of the project that they've already handed over some money for will lose money, as I've already said, but the Liberals are prepared to go even further and fund Stage 2 of the project even before we've actually seen the final designs or the plans, even before it's been submitted to Infrastructure Australia. The Deputy Prime Minister may not know this, but the relevant Planning Assessment Committee that looked at Stage 2 recommended to the state Liberal government that Stage 2 not go ahead because there was no plan yet. But that hasn't stopped this government from handing over the best part of a couple of $1 billion to help the Victorian Liberals till they get past the state election. So when the government comes in here and says we need some rigour and we need some transparency, we say, well, put your money where your mouth is. Submit the East-West Link project in Victoria to the same kind of cost-benefit analysis that you're now saying is worthwhile for future projects, and I'll believe you're serious. And until then, all this is cover for yet another broken election promise. And so these amendments will get our support because they're good amendments, because they hold the government not just to its own promises, but to basic standards that should apply before a single dollar goes out of here for a multi-billion-dollar project, which is show us the cost-benefit analysis. Because I think the Deputy Prime Minister knows, just as everyone else in this place knows, that the East-West link does not stack up. And the only way that there can possibly be any money spent is if you ignore the fact that it's going to be a loss-making project. Melbourne is crying out for investment in public transport. Melbourne could be one of those cities that's like other cities that you go to around the world where you can get around without having to use a car. We are a growing city that needs more trains. And that is something that the federal government could help with. Just as it has in the past, it could help with that again. But instead, billions of dollars for a road that no one wants And if these amendments are supported, then hopefully the government will release the cost-benefit analysis for East Westland.
Thank the member for Melbourne.